One day, I went to visit my friend Nas. I found him outside his house, running as fast as he could along the edge of his yard, throwing handfuls of breadcrumbs into the bushes. I finally stopped him and said, "Nas, what are you doing?" He did not even slow down. He just said casually, "I am throwing breadcrumbs to keep the tigers away." I told him, "Nas, there are no tigers in this neighborhood." He stopped, looked at his empty lawn, and smiled. Exactly. Effective, isn't it? My name is Neelu, and you are listening to Consciousness Lab, where we deconstruct the absurdities of human behavior using the wisdom of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. We can laugh at Nas's story, we can call him delusional, but if we look at the internal architecture of our lives, most of us are throwing crumbs. The character Nas lives inside us. Think about the safety behaviors you carry with you every day. The way you check your email 40 times an hour, driven by the fear of missing out. The way you rehearse arguments in the shower. Arguments with people who are not even upset with you. Just to be ready, just in case. The way you over prepare for a presentation until you are exhausted and meticulously arranging every slide, every word, every gesture, just to keep the tiger of failure at bay. These behaviors feel smart, responsible, but in reality, they are breadcrumbs, small, repetitive act meant to keep the danger away, even if the danger only exists in your mind. They are the echoes of Nas inside us. We tell ourselves, and as a matter of fact, we convince ourselves that it is a good thing I worried. It is a good thing I stayed up all night. It is a good thing I overdid it. It is a good thing my anxiety is running wild. And so I was able to keep the tiger away. And in reality, the tiger never came. This is the most dangerous trap of the human mind. We confuse the absence of disaster with evidence that our neurosis is doing its job. But Patanjali says it is Viparyaya. Now, what is Viparyaya? Viparyaya is knowledge based on false assumption. False assumption is one of the 5 Vrittis categories. In actual English translation, Vritti is whirlpool that is incessant and dizzying. In yogic model, this Vritti is the whirlpool of thoughts that revolves around forming certain pattern. It is not an individual thought though, but the culmination of a set of many thoughts forming a pattern. It is an interconnected network of many thoughts. Vritti reinforces our ego, who you are, your worldview, how you conceptualize the material world, your action, your reaction, perspective, and attitude. Let me give you an example of Vritti, how it emerged. Imagine this. You are walking downtown. You see a Starbucks. All of a sudden, a thought comes to go and get that latte. You go in. And when you enter, another thought comes. Get a slice of banana bread. Then another thought joins. Is that healthy? And then comes the consoling thought. Maybe one time won't kill. And another thought of a friend who hates banana comes. And another thought reminds you that you are getting late for the meeting. Then you play the meeting scene. Then you rehearse what you will say in the meeting. And all of a sudden, a thought of your mom comes. You start planning to take her to the doctors, to the physical care professionals, physical therapist. And this is how one trigger leads to a thought. One thought leads to several other thoughts. And it keeps sprouting from each string of thought. And in the end, these thoughts entangle with each other. And based on that, you create a reality that may be based on false assumption. The example I gave you is just the mechanism of vritti emergence. How one thought leads to another and to another. And Patanjali says vrittis are of 5 kinds, and false assumption is one of them. False assumption has 2 parts. First, it is wrong. Second, it is based on a logic that does not have a ground. In other words, the knowledge is based on lofty logic. In Nash's story, his logic is crumbs equal no tiger. That means if he throws the crumbs, tigers will not come. The logic is internally consistent, but the premise of it is a ghost. Here are the key points. First, he had a belief, the belief that tigers are coming. Second, he performs an action, he throws crumbs. That's his safety measure. Third, he sees a result. The result is there is no tiger. And when he does not see the tiger and he is throwing the crumb, then he validates. He validates saying that the crumbs worked. Let me give you an example of vritti based on false assumption. Earlier example was just for the vritti in general, but this one is specific to false assumption. Imagine this. You have just started dating. You sent an important text message at 10 a.m. It is 2 p.m. now. You check your phone again and you see the red receipt. But there is no reply. You don't even see an emoji or a thumbs up. And this is where Viparyaya starts to take control. It is not just one thought, it is a sequence that gains speed. You start thinking immediately, he is ignoring me because he is losing interest in me. See what is happening? This is the seed of Viparyaya, the false assumption. What you have done is you have taken a fact, the fact of silence, and then you have given it a false meaning, the rejection. So you have equated silence with rejection. The mind then starts spinning backward, searching for a pattern. Then you think, wait, he was quiet at dinner on Tuesday. I knew something was off. He did not laugh at my joke as hard as usual. Then the whirlpool widens. Then you again think, I always do this. I am too much for people. He probably realized I am not as smart, not as cool as he thought. And this is 6 p.m. now, and you have concluded that the relationship is over. You might even type out a defensive, fine, be that way text. Suddenly, at 6:05 p.m., he calls you. Hey, I saw your text while I was running into a 4-hour emergency meeting, and my phone died right after. I've been dying to talk to you. Now, let me ask you this question. What is driving this false knowledge? Patanjali says, Avinivesha. This is the deep-seated, instinctive clinging to life and fear of the unknown. It is what makes Nas keep the crumbs in his pocket even after I tell him there are no tigers. Fear does not care about your facts. Fear cares about its own maintenance. By throwing those crumbs, Nas isn't protecting his house. He is maintaining his fundamental error that has deep root inside. He is choosing a false sense of control over the uncomfortable truth that he was never in danger to begin with. What is Nas missing? Patanjali says he is missing Viveka, discernment. Viveka is the ability to see things as they actually are, not as we fear them to be. Now, the question is, how do we stop? How do we stop throwing crumbs? In other words, how do we stop the modification of the mind, the Vrittis, based on false assumption? Patanjali does not tell us to just stop thinking. His formula is Nirodha. Nirodha is the cessation of mind fluctuation. In Nirodha, the goal is not to eliminate the thought of the tiger. You cannot eliminate. It's impossible. But you can watch the thought objectively. A thought is a thought. In this case, Nas can watch the thought of tiger as a thought of tiger, not the truth. The tiger is not in front of him. This way, he can stop mistaking the thought for the truth. Look at the empty lawn. Realize the tiger was never there. It is terrifying because it means your protection, your safety measure, was a waste of time. But it is also the only way to be free from anxiety and stress. And I went to see Nas again. I found him doing the same ritual of throwing breadcrumbs around his yard. I think I'm going to buy him a coffee one of these days. Not to tell him that he is wrong, but just to sit with him in the no tiger zone for a while. What are your tigers? And more importantly, what are your crumbs? Here is your homework for this week. Look at your crumbs. Let me give you two examples, maybe two questions to start with. Are you staying in a relationship that does not work because you are afraid of the tiger of loneliness? Think about that if you are staying in such a relationship. Another example question is, are you overworking to avoid the tiger of being seen as not enough? And you can replace this example question with your own life context. The next time you find yourself throwing crumbs, performing a ritual of anxiety, just stop and watch. Stop and watch. Watch objectively. If this podcast resonated with you, share it with someone who is currently throwing a lot of crumbs. I will see you in the next one.